All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. My name is Alex Beamer. I'm the director of band and orchestra, uh, West Music, and we are just ecstatic to have Wayne Bergeron on with us tonight for our masterclass series. I don't necessarily need to give Wayne an introduction. I mean, yeah, we all know who Wayne is. He's played with many different movie titles, TV shows, uh, tons of artists, and he is just a fantastic trumpet player. And we've been chit chatting here for the past 10, 15 minutes, and he's obviously a really great guy. So we're definitely thrilled to have him, and we'll have little opportunities here later on to do some question and answer. So feel free to type some things in the chat. I'll moderate that, and then of course, if you want to jump in, feel free to either raise your hand or just type it in, and I'll give you guys a call so that we can have a little bit of order, right? We don't want to have a free for all now. Okay, so but without further ado, Wayne, how about we pop it over to you? Thanks for being with us today.
Oh man, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it very much. I've been doing a lot of these lately. Let's just start off by saying this COVID thing sucks.
It's got to be
yeah,
done, right? Let's get it over with.
but I'm so glad we're kind of getting on the other end of it. I mean, this has been great. The good thing about this pandemic, if there's anything good about it, is we've all learned a bunch of stuff. We've learned a little. Everybody here, I bet, has learned something about technology they might not have known. I've been doing, luckily, I've had a home studio for a long time now, so I've been recording remotely for different projects for a few years. And so when this thing happened, uh, you know, projects had to get done. I started panicking. I go, oh my God, my career's over. Everything went away. All guest artist things, every recording session got canceled, and I was like, I'm done here. I'm gonna go. I had to go on unemployment for a minute, but then I ended up getting cancer. Uh, to put another, happy, bright spot on it. But
Wow.
it was kind of in a way, it was kind of a good time to get sick because there was no work happening. So I didn't have to panic about not working.
Mm.
And I was able to get unemployment and disability and get some money coming in. And then I have some money saved and, a little income revenue going on. So I didn't have to panic too much. But uh, it was scary. But I didn't have to worry about going to work or missing work. So as things are opening up now, and I've recovered, I've been recovered for a while, but I'm still getting my act back together after the treatments. They were done at the end of June, and I'm not gonna lie, it was butt kicker, with a
Yeah.
tumor on my neck, getting radiation there,
Wow.
and it was no fun. And that's what that you see that green mask back there. I'm not a serial killer or or anything like that. It's not a Jeffrey Dahmer thing,
I just figured it was one of the movies you played on. It was here.
it's gruesome. I got a Halloween costume now at
Yeah.
least, but it's a radiation mask, and
Wow.
I was on the table, and that's molded to my face, and they would pin me down with that, and then this thing would go around my head, and man, I got
Wow.
35 of those, and I got to tell you, man, the last treatment, that last time, because I knew the rotation of the thing after a while and when it was ending,
Yeah.
and man, I got super emotional, man. That thing was going off the last time, and they took that mask off me. I was soaking wet, man. I was just
Mm.
bawling my eyes out because I was so glad that wasn't going to be happening to me anymore. Because it was,
That's
I
intense.
know it sounds like it was really fun, but it's it really isn't. But anyway, I'm getting my act back together. I lost 50 pounds from the radiation. Not a diet I recommend, but because
Good side effect.
it's like 3,000 calories a day you lose
Wow.
from radiation, and you have to eat a ton to keep up with it. So I was like trying to eat all this high caloric food, but the problem is your throat's hurting so bad you can't swallow,
Right.
and your taste buds are gone, so everything tastes bad. They fry
Mm.
your taste buds, and then some things like salty things were good. So I ate a ton of soup, but I would have to like pack things with calories, like put avocado oil and everything, because that's really high calorie, just to keep up with it. Because the first week I lost 12 pounds, and the doctor said, "Dude, you can't do this. You will die. You're
Wow.
gonna die if you don't eat." So because I don't care if you eat raw sugar, you need
Yeah.
to put some weight on and drink syrup, whatever you've got to
Wow.
do. He goes, the biggest concern here is calories, not healthy food. I did try to eat healthy. Anyway, because I was gonna have to get a feeding tube and all this other stuff, and I didn't want to do that because that was going to affect my playing even more, and,
Sure. Well,
if I had to take,
how has it affected your playing? You
well,
obviously had to take some time off, right, or something.
yeah, my first week, I figured I was going to be like Ryan Anthony, and all
Yeah.
these football players probably, and Ryan Anthony would go do chemo and then go play Mahler 5 that night. And let me tell you, now that
Yeah.
I've done chemo, I'm going, this guy is Superman.
Yeah.
I mean,
Insane.
I could get at the computer here and work for 10 minutes and I have to go take a nap. I mean, because it just really, just really a mess, So it was unbelievable to me that he could do that. But for me, the first week, I did my first radiation and chemo on a Monday, and Wednesday hit. Monday, Tuesday, I go, oh, I'm okay. It's not so bad. I mean, I felt a little not very good, but
Right.
and then Wednesday hit, and oh my God,
Mm.
man, I have never been so sick. Not
Mm.
throwing up sick, but just like feeling absolutely horrible, dizzy, just everything, man. And then it kind of went downhill from there for a few days, and a lot of horrible things happened. And I won't share those things with you, but and then by
Mm.
Saturday it kind of leveled out, and then I was doing radiation every day, of course, too, And then I did chemo every 3 weeks, and by the end of the third week, you're almost normal, and then you got to do it again.
Yeah.
And so that first week, the trumpet was the furthest thing from my mind. I didn't even think about it. So I just said, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. Just so I didn't play for several weeks. And then as they changed my medication, it leveled off. I started getting back to the horn, but my throat hurt so bad that I could play a G on top of the staff,
Mm.
and it hurt.
Yeah.
And so I practiced every day, kind of as much as I could. I'd practice soft, and I would play Clark number 1 and number 2 every day, just up the G on top of the staff. And I'd play things that didn't go high, like Charlier number 14, which is the that one, the one for the third finger.
Mm-hmm.
And I practiced that. So I did practice, but it wasn't until I stopped my treatments and it started healing that I could start getting my mojo back, kind of.
Sure.
And but I did play a movie call 7 weeks after my treatments. It was for Minions 2, and I know this Hator, the composer. I know he writes hard, and so but I had taken the date and going, all right, well maybe I'll be okay by then. I kind of rolled the dice, and anyway, I called the other trumpet players on the date, it was John Lewis and Rob Shear, and I said, hey, you guys, I'm not going to be 100% on this, and I'm going to need your help. And I'll call the contractor, and we'll split the money up, the first trumpet money, because you get more for first trumpet.
Mm.
And I go, I'll split the money with you, and I'm going to need you if you can play some cues as needed. There was a bunch of piccolo trumpet stuff, and I kind of just wasn't up for it. But I was playing okay. I mean, I was kind of doing it. My range had kind of come back, but I hadn't played anything real high. I hadn't touched a high G in months,
Well,
And we get to this cue, and there's a high G at the end of it, and I'm going, oh no! And everything had been pretty easy, basically, for this guy,
sure.
pretty easy. It was a lot of unison, and so I could kind of, shuck and jive and hide a little bit, let my colleagues take the ball. I'm not gonna lie, I'm no fool, But
Right.
I mean, I earned my money. I played everything for them. But we got to this cue and had a high G at the end of it. And before we did it, they go, "Hey Wayne, we want to do that as an overdub, okay? Because we want to be able to control that." And I go, "Oh, great, And it's just the brass section, big brass section, because COVID and we're social distance and all that. So we get to that, and I have to overdub this note. Now I'm panicked. I hit a high G in 3 months, or 3.5 months. So I put a mute in, and while they were talking, I was kind of just going, I was doing these, going. And just kind of like trying to, get it going and half valving it. And I was kind of getting it. And then we did it. And they rolled the thing, and I got a 4-bar pre-roll into the thing. And I nailed it in one take. And my colleagues, I got this big round of applause, and I was like, yeah, I'm just as surprised as you are,
The trumpet gods were with you, huh?
Yeah. And then they asked, hey, can we do one more for safety? And I go, absolutely not. Because I don't think I could have hit it again. I mean, I think I was just lucky and I just kind of got it. And it wasn't easy. It didn't come easy, let me tell you. It wasn't like an effortless high G. But I
Yeah.
got it. And so it gave me a little glimmer of hope that, okay, I'm coming back. I'm going to be okay. But even now, and that was months ago, even now, uh, I have some issues with my playing that I'm dealing with. I'm strong. I mean, my
Sure.
range is back and my air is back. That was the big thing, man. I was running out of air very quickly. I took a lesson with Bobby Shue and kind of went back to his
Mm.
teachings. I studied with him a long time ago, but I kind of got away from it, and so as I was having problems, I called Vinny DiMartino. I call all these people that are great teachers and know about the trumpet,
Right.
and I called Greg Wing, and just there's different trumpet cats I know that are great teachers, and they all gave me different advice, and I ran with it. But Bobby really, he got me thinking about getting the core of my body working again. And what he told me was, man, you're looking for your chops 50 pounds ago, dude. He goes, you need to find your chops now, 50 pounds
Mm.
later, because my face is smaller, and I mean, I was never a big, huge guy, but I'm pretty trim now, and I'm exercising. And I'm probably in the best shape I've been in my life. It's not really the diet I wanted to go on, but I hike
Sure.
regularly. My wife and I do on serious hikes too, not little walks. I'm talking about going uphill for 5 miles, and so all that stuff. Even though I used to think that people would ask about exercise in the trumpet, I go, well, I guess it wouldn't hurt, but it's not really. I used to sit next to this guy George Graham, who was this big, really out of shape, one of the greatest trumpet players I ever sat next to. I go, and George could bury me,
Mm.
and so and he hasn't walked a mile in his entire life. He'd walk to the donuts, shop probably every day. But so I used to say, no, well, it's a matter of just physics and having the air moving right, and I guess it can't hurt. But now that I've done this and I'm putting myself back together, I noticed my playing is improving from getting myself in shape. And that might just because I
Interesting.
was weak too from the weight loss. I was pretty weak. Um, but anyway, it's
Well,
a lot of
Wayne, it's an interesting topic to talk about. And for everyone out there, just so that everything's on the table. I'm not a trumpet player.
get out of here. Oh,
I know, right? I know. It's like get that guy out of here, right? I am a let's self-proclaimed trumpet nerd of some sort of whatever we want to say. I've heard a couple different thought processes on this as far as trumpet playing, full body exercise versus being very focused in certain parts of the body. But maybe it might be good as you've learned and as you've had to rebuild your skill here. Maybe what are your thoughts on that
uh,
philosophy?
one of the things I'm kind of doing now, and I do this, think about it a lot when I practice, is I'm doing Pilates as well. Yeah, said Wayne Bergeron, never, but so I'm like got my leg stretched with these stretching straps. I'm doing all this stuff, and everything involves your core.
Sure.
And so what I've been doing is I've been doing Bobby Shue's wedge breath, which is like you take in a relaxed inhale and you fill from the bottom to the top. You fill your lower lungs first, and then you pull your navel in and you work from your core. So since I'm doing all this core stuff, what I do is I'll sit on a hard surface with like a wooden chair, and
Hmm.
I engage my core and I make sure it's flat against that surface. And I don't think about that when I'm playing gigs, but when I'm practicing. And it really forces you to focus from here and takes all the tension out of the upper body. And which I've always tried to do anyway. And I always when I'm teaching, I'm always talking about that. Getting your core working for you, and not going. This is when I was young. I
Yeah.
played like this. And everything is
Hmm.
tight up here. That's probably why this happened to my neck.
Sure.
We get the with laryngocele, it's called, thing that happens to a lot of trumpet players, and it's from not knowing how to breathe in support. I mean, I'm convinced that it's what it's from. I mean, I guess some people could just be weak here, and playing a high compression instrument could do some damage, But I think it's because I didn't know how to kind of play correctly. If there was a correct way to play, I mean, I think if the notes are coming out, that's the correct way to play. I don't care if you're turning blue and your mouthpiece is over here. There's probably a more efficient way to go about it. and I just know from, when I was young, I was a very natural player when I was young. I could play a double high C when I was 12. So my range is the same uh, when I was 12 as it is now. I'm
Yeah.
63. I think I'm a better trumpet player. I hope I'm a better trumpet player than I was when I was 12. But I had these natural chops. So I had a lot of bad habits comes with that,
Hmm.
you know. And you're just doing what you got to do. But I did have the airstream moving right, and I had the reeds functioning the correct way. So whatever it is, so that's when I'm talking about range. A lot of times, I never talk about building. I like to talk about discovering range, because everybody here has a double high C, whether you realize it or not. You just haven't discovered it yet. You just have to go get it. And how many people here, I wonder, have had your trumpet teacher tell you, "Oh, don't worry about the high notes. Don't, they'll come. Just keep practicing. That don't worry about them. They're not coming. They're lying. The high notes are not coming." You do have to go get them, and when you hit
Right.
a plateau, something has to change to get into this next, to get into the attic. We always hit our head on the ceiling. We're trying to get into the attic. That's where those good notes are. You got to figure out the way in there. You can't just keep hitting your head against the ceiling. You're not going to get in. So something has to change. The airstream has to change. The pressure on the lips has to change. Maybe the jaw comes out. Maybe the horn angle comes down or up. A number of different things that people experiment with, that I found success in helping students with. And there was even my drummer in my high school band, this guy Ron Currow, I always like to talk about him, knew nothing about the trumpet, but he loved high note trumpet. Like we'd go see Maynard, when we were in high school, we'd go see Maynard Ferguson together and Buddy Rich's band and Woody Herman's band. And he loved the lead trumpet thing, and he knew nothing, but he could pick up my trumpet and with knowing nothing about the trumpet and zero training would do this. He doesn't even know what the notes are. He would just like wiggle his fingers, and he could go up to a double high C. And I'm going, well, how could he possibly do that without playing out of the Arbin's book ever? you know,
Yeah.
it's all about physics, and like I said, the reeds functioning correctly, the correct air pressure, the correct compression, because we create compression in here, and he could play a double high C louder than I could. I mean,
Mm.
he could do this so well that we used to let him play a scream solo over one of the charts that we played in high school. He'd get off the drums and the other drummer would get on and he'd go out front and grab my spare trumpet and just go, we go, what did it, what did it, and he'd go, he would just wailing A's and G's, and the crowd would go nuts because the drummer, had the best sound in the whole band. So anyway, that's why I think about discovery with this,
Mm.
because you can it's like guessing the combination to the safe. And it doesn't mean you don't practice. It doesn't mean there's a magic formula, but there are some things you can try, and it does take some experimentation. And I'm still, I don't experiment with trying to get notes anymore, but I experiment around with how can I make this easier. So I'm always
Sure.
thinking about efficiency and and what happens when I analyze what's going on. When I'm feeling really good and the notes are coming out easy, I go, what's going on with me? I go, what are the acoustics like in the room I'm in? What am I wearing? What color underwear am I wearing? Blue. Okay, I'm gonna always wear blue because my shops feel good, and get rid of any variables, that I even put my mouthpiece in, which is some voodoo, but I put my mouthpiece in the exact same place every time, the same direction. I have this little sticker on here. It's just number 2 backbore because I have a number 1 backbore mouthpiece too, and sometimes I don't want to put the wrong one in, and so I always put that down. And so at least I know, even though these things technically are perfectly round, I'm still a trumpet geek, and I think everything is different.
Well,
So
have you done that thing? I think it's Wayne Tanabe really talks about this clocking the mouthpiece.
that's what that is. It's clocking the mouthpiece. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, and Bob Malone and him are the ones that told me
Right.
about. So to getting rid of any variables, as minute as that might seem,
Right.
and it makes sense. So I might do that, and I've got horns galore here, that I that go through. We're coming out with a new. Uh, uh, since Yamaha is sponsoring this, we should thank them. I'll thank them. I know you're going to thank them as well. I'm very honored to be part of this company, man. They do so many great things. And I have this is my new, I have my own model trumpet, the 8335 LA. Uh, trumpet, and this is the next generation. So this is the new. They did a next generation Bobby Shoe and a next generation Eric Miyashiro. So all three of these models are flugelhorns and are trumpets. They've done a bunch of new processes where they're annealing the valve sections differently, and the valve section is actually different. And just some other different technology that's gone on that's changed some things for the better. And I didn't think, I was perfectly happy with my horn. The horn I played was right out of wasn't anything special. It was right out of the production model, right off the shelf.
Right.
And I've been playing it for forever. And then we came out with this, and we started testing them. And my wife even goes, "Man, that second one, man, there's something in the core of the sound." I go, I know. And I go, "It's the same horn. It's just different processing." And so, there's all these people at Yamaha, and their only job, which is so great about this company, they never rest on their laurels. Their whole job is to make this instrument better.
Right.
And they're constantly working at it. Even instruments are successful, like their C trumpets and stuff.
Right.
They're still they're getting advice from great players and great resources, and so anyway, it's a really great horn, and I'm loving it.
Wayne, the horn obviously, does having a great horn, obviously, and the right tools gives you the opportunity to perform at your highest level. I want to get back to what you mentioned a little bit earlier, because it kind of sparked, my own interest. Is you talked about hitting that ceiling, and some things that you might do to try to blow past that a little bit. I mean, I've heard people do the Caruso studies and some things like that, but like, what are your processes to try to, or helping young players to move past that ceiling?
Well, my thing is probably a little more voodoo oriented. People always go, "Don't listen to Wayne Bergeron, he's a witch." Nathaniel, that's on the screen here, we did a lesson the other day, and I took Nathaniel through some of my voodoo stuff, and then he called me up and left me a message. He goes, "Dude," he goes, "man, I just plowed a double high B. I've never been able to center that note before." And what I had him do was open his spit valve while he played it. Which is a very weird thing, because in the staff, of course, it sounds horrible, right? But when you get up high, there's not as much air moving past that hole.
Right.
Right. And so what it does is it changes the nodal points on the instrument. And so it might take a note and make one note not center as well, but it'll teach you how to find that. As trumpet players, we all have this falsetto or our break. It's usually over high G, right? It's one of my problems right now, matter of fact, because mine used to be at G sharp. G sharp was the funny note for me that I didn't like. Most people, it's an A, right? Most trumpet players would agree the high A is like, "Oh God, I hate high A." I love high A. That's my best note, right? But the G sharp was always funny. I learned how to play it. I had to do all these weird things to access it, but now, since my cancer and the weight loss and the treatments, which I have scar tissue inside my throat and stuff now, so my airwaves are different. Now my break has moved down a half step. So now F sharp and G are funny notes to me. And now G sharp is smoking. Which was, and B flat was always kind of a little bit of a funny note too. I could do it, but I wasn't, A was so good and B flat would just never feel the same. And then B was good, and C, the notes above there were pretty good, as good as they can be, while causing, internal bleeding to your body trying to play them,
Exactly.
But now my B flat and my A flat are smoking. So this guy sent me this chart just today, matter of fact, that I'm going to do. And if you look at letter C, there's a double B flat there. I can't wait to track this bad boy. A couple of months ago, a year ago, I would have played an A and just pitched it up. because we can do that if we have to, But yeah, but so anyway, those, I was talking about my issues. Those are kind of my issues. So I'm trying to solve those things. So here's some of my voodoo. Spit valve. When you get to that plateau, see if it lets you, because it'll take the walls down between the notes. It's more of a siren. You can siren a little bit more, so it takes those breaks down. It might get you over that break, and then you might hit a note you've never hit and go, "Whoa!" What? And then you learn what that note feels like.
Sure.
Right. Also, doing some things on the lead pipe, like seeing what you can play on the lead pipe, and see if that transfers to the trumpet. For me, I'll show you this just funny trick since you know, I was just telling you about what's going on with me. So this is a weird thing, and I showed this to Nathaniel. So the G is a funny note, right? So I'll show you. If I go to play a G scale and I don't do anything, I'll try to access that G like it used to be. And it was home base for me. F sharp and G,
Sure.
that was just another day in the office, for me. Now, if I go to play a G scale and I don't do anything, here's what happens. You hear the F sharp and G went haywire and they went up a step.
Yeah.
They actually went up a whole step.
Right.
So that's not good if you're going for a high G and it's a step higher. Or if it's in the chord, it would work, I guess. But so trying to figure this out, so I'm like doing tongue position. I'm thinking about all this stuff that I never used to think about. So I'm moving my tongue forward, and that kind of puts a ceiling on it, but it's kind of funny. And then I started thinking about the piccolo trumpet. And some classical trumpet players, when they play the Brandenburg Trumpet Concerto, they'll take this fourth slide out, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, and they'll put a little bell in there.
Yeah.
And they'll play the A with the slide out and go. Right? So that A is coming out of the tube, but they put a little bell there, and it comes out really easy. I mean, it's like that feels like a high C. So you can go, you can play it very easily, right? So I started thinking about that. And I go, well, let me see. When I play open, I'm getting a G sharp, right? When I try, so I started, so I go, let me pull the third slide out of my trumpet and see if I can play that high G 2 and 3, like a G sharp.
Sure.
Perfect. It lands perfectly in tune, and I can feel what that feels like on my chops now. So what I have to do, and this is what Bobby Shu told me, he goes, you have to reprogram your brain because these notes are in a different place now. To access them, the brain has to be able to access them, and they're not where they used to be. It's like pissing me off. I open door number 1. Hey, we're high G. High A. What are you doing in there? Yeah. That's been my life. But now, so what I'll do is I'll play the G sharp coming out of the tube, and then I open the horn up and keep the airstream steady and try to land that high G. I'm not very warmed up here, so I've been working on the house all day. Right? And so I'm teaching myself where that note is now. And it's coming. It's coming now. I mean, I've actually been on a couple of sessions where there was a high G, and I was worried about it, and I got it, so 3 months ago, did not exist, was not on the scale. Just was not there. So, and I got together with Bob Malone from Yamaha. We did all kinds of stuff to my horn, and we created resistance, and so that's one little thing. Anyway, other things I was doing was loosening all these up to put the valves really out of alignment to create resistance. And Nathaniel and I, we remember the other day we did this, and I go, wow, that's better like that. Because so it tells me, oh, I need more resistance, right? So, well, for instance, here's the piccolo trumpet, okay? G is no problem. Tons of resistance, half the size. So I've learned that resistance can be your friend. I've always liked really open horns, and I like a big horn. I've just always kind of played on bigger stuff, bigger mouthpiece than most lead players, and I could just never play anything too shallow. And Bach 37s feel horrible to me. Great instrument. Thousands and thousands of trumpet players. It's the sound that everybody's chasing. Yamaha and everybody, copying that Bach 37.
Right.
And without all the pitch, without all the pitch issues though. But that's another clinic for another day. I'm not here to bash anybody or anything. So, but anyway, so that's some of my voodoo. The spit valve thing. One of the other things like when you get to your ceiling, like I was saying, something has to change. or you're never going to break through. You're just going to get better at all this up to here. You can practice. And so I had one student that could play, he could play a beautiful high E and couldn't play one note higher. And I'm looking at his chops and like picture perfect chops. I'm going, well, there's nothing weird here, but in the high E sounds like $1,000,000. And so I started experimenting around with his horn angle. And while he played, he would hit that E, and then I was messing with his chops and his mouthpiece, going pulling down and like clocking different, like pulling up on the lips a little bit, pulling down on the lips a little bit, because all that stuff, we're manipulating the reed, so it's going to change things, right? And I'll explain why I called this a reed in a minute. And so, accent. So, where was my point? I do have a point. Oh yeah. So what I did was I had him hit that E, and I lifted up on his bell while he was holding the note, just like that. Not even that much. Just bumped it, and he went, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah," and he sounded like Tarzan, "Oh yeah," And he was like, "Damn, man, I've never hit a high." I went to a G. And he's like, "Dang, oh my God," And so that's all it was a little pressure shift. Mm. And maybe when we did that, the jaw kicked out a little bit or something, And so he broke through. He found the attic door. And then he got up in there and he goes, "Wow, look at, there's a G sharp up here and an A. Whoa, there's all kinds of cool stuff up here in the attic, And so I said, "Well, that'll be $300. I'll see you next week." And it's going to take a long time to get the other notes. We're going to have to do a lot of practicing. So anyway, those are some of the things that I've gotten dogged, on Facebook a little bit by all the experts, that are on Facebook. We've seen them all out there, all the trumpet experts, that, sound like ass, most of them. They play a double high C, everything note going up to it sounds absolutely horrible. And they go, "Well, there you have it." I'm going, "Well, yeah, there you have it. All right." And they are, they're self-proclaimed experts. So I go to science and I go to tradition, and I'm going to go to the people that have the real answers. I'm going to, Bobby Shu, I think, is the greatest brass educator of our time. Mm. And he goes completely against the grain of how we've all been taught. Mm. And, and you talk about and I was mentioning this to Nathaniel the other day about the Arben's book and the Schlossberg, and those are great. It's all great material. But they're written 100 years ago. I'd like to think we've learned a couple of things. We went from the abacus to the Mac. So we've kind of come a long way here. So the trumpet shouldn't be stuck, we shouldn't have our heads stuck in the sand of tradition. We should be moving forward and learning. And everybody talks about older horns. Oh, the older horns are so much better. No, they're not. They're not better. I mean, some of them are great. If you take 20 of those old horns and one of them plays great, and the other 19 of them probably don't play very well, and they talk, and so it's really not. The horns are more consistent now, and we kind of really have to get our heads out of the sand, when looking at this stuff, and realizing that what we've learned is great. So, and that goes with trumpet playing as well. We've become much more efficient. Music has gotten much more difficult from the days of Herbert L. Clark. Let's say, a lot of those cornet players could play a high E flat concert though, but not many of them were playing above that, or they're playing very deep mouthpieces and working really, really hard for it. And their chops were all done by the time they were 40 years old. They couldn't play anymore. And that used to be, the lead trumpet players of the 50s. Some of the older school players that played bigger mouthpieces and bigger equipment, Al Persino and some of these guys, they played kind of big stuff and they got a great sound, but they worked really, really hard for it.
Right.
And so a lot of them, their chops would be done by the time they were 60. Their chops are fried and they retire or whatever. Bobby Shu, got really smart about this. When he was 30, he had his blood all over the music. He worked so hard. He figured out a better way to play. And now Bobby's 80 years old. And if he was here right now, man, he could take his trumpet out and he could play a better double high C than anybody on this page, including me. And so he knows something. This guy knows something about it. So anyway, I've tried to adapt that philosophy into my own thing and not be a lughead about this, and understanding that to play high, you have to have a good foundation. When I hear a lot of people trying to play in the upper registers, something always suffers. If they're going to go for a high F, right, and they're going to do a scale, I always hear this. Like the first note is already, they're already panicking because they're worried about going to the high F. And I told Nathaniel this the other day. I said, play that first note just normal. Play it like you own it. Play it like a classical trumpet player. Go, bah. Go now start from that foundation and work your way up to the high F and make it sound the same. So we don't want to pinch and press and twist. We want the lower register to connect with the upper register. And so I think it's really important, and I wish I would have known this when I was young, for everybody to have some sort of classical background, at least of how to produce sound. You know what I mean? Like that foundation of tone and purity of sound and efficient thing, And I think for me, when I started thinking that way, which was much, way later in life for me, into my 30s, I noticed my playing improve. I started studying with some classical trumpet teachers. I studied with Boyd Hood, and I studied with Yuan Racy, who was a great film trumpet player here from Los Angeles. And when I started adapting their approach to sound, I noticed my upper register got better and started sounding better. And people always just say, "God, man, you sound like a classical. Your sound is so pure up high." And I'm going, "Well, that's the biggest compliment somebody could give me. I don't want to sound like a leaf blower in the upper register, which, it can sound okay, screechy can sound good, when it's surrounded by a lot of stuff. But when you're playing by yourself, when you're playing a solo, and everything's exposed about you, you have to have a quality sound in all registers. And I think that foundation comes from the lower register and connecting those registers. A mental thing I like to do is look at low C and high C, and everybody looks at it like this, and then I look at it like this. And in my mind, I make those notes closer together. Because even when you get above high C, the notes are really close. I mean, you can hear... the notes are close. Like I said, I'm not warmed up. I feel like I sound like ass right now. But those notes are close together. Like C and the G aren't light years apart.
Right.
And so even that planting that mental seed can really help, and connect things. The other thing about playing in the upper register, or just making sound in general, not everybody understands this, but when we play loud, our aperture, or our space between our two reeds, I think of this like I mentioned reed. It's like an oboe reed or a bassoon reed. That's what we are. And so we've all been taught, ever since we started, to go into our trumpets, right? Every one of us, that's how we first learn to make a sound. And that's why beginners sound like this. That's why they think on. All we're doing is amplifying that sound. It is an amplifier. So you think about a clarinet player or a saxophone player. Would they ever take the reed, smash them together, and blow air between them? Because that's when we do that, that's what we're doing, right? And it would sound really awful. It would squeak, and there would be all kinds of turbulence. And so there has to be a space, between the top of the mouthpiece and that reed. And it's the same thing with brass players, whether it's the tuba, the trombone, or the trumpet, or the French horn. There has to be a place for the air to get through. And that is our volume control, that aperture. I think it's the most important part of the whole mechanism. All the books talk about air, and they say, it's 99% air, and all this. I don't buy that. I think that's being an airhead, personally. I think it's 99.999% brain and how we use our air. This controls the volume, not air. So for instance, if you play something soft, I have a very tiny, tiny pinhole right here to respond at that volume, right? If I try to keep that just like that and play louder, I'll try to crescendo. blowing as hard as I can, and the volume is not changing. So it doesn't matter how much air I've got. If that reed is not functioning the way it's supposed to function, I'm not going to get any louder, right? So that you can experiment with that by doing, some of those Schlossberg exercises where you crescendo and go. And you can feel the aperture opening up, the air actually pushing it open, and then it coming back down. If you crescendo and don't bring it back in, right? You slow that air down and you don't make that smaller.
Sure.
And you're trying to get softer. It's going down. It's looking for the next partial down. It's going flatter and flatter and gets cloudy. Then boom, and you're on a G all of a sudden, right? So understanding how that works is really important. An oboe player would never smash those reeds together. They would blow air between those two reeds and they would vibrate. I would use the word vibrate over buzz. And then the instrument resonates. Because this doesn't need any air to make a note. Can play Peter Gunn. Now my mouthpiece is probably stuck. There's actually a brass ensemble piece that's written. I don't know if any of you know that piece. It's written. It's got popping trumpets and they're popping their horns. It's actually really cool, kind of a cool thing. But there's no air going in there and it's changing notes, right? Mm-hmm. So all we're doing when we blow into this is we're setting up the molecules in the horn to make the sound, right? So I mean that's way too technical for me to think about with my little brain. I'm no expert on this by any, but that's what I've been told, and it's what I think actually happens just from watching different. John Harbaugh talks about this a lot. He's a really great trumpet player and educator, and about the way we actually make sound and how we've all been taught incorrectly. And it doesn't mean you don't buzz your mouthpiece, and it doesn't mean it's bad. I buzz every day. I do some Bobby Shoe stuff. I do a little mouthpiece routine because it gets the corners activated. But I do make sure I'm buzzing the mouthpiece very close to how it activates the horn. So. I just do I buzz very softly and I try to get, so there's still a hole and not all of this vibrating. Because I don't know if you've probably seen this little demonstration before, but here, I'll do a nice buzz here. That's a pretty good buzz, I guess. That sounds okay, right? Sounds awful. Sounds like somebody putting a cat in a food processor, It's not good, not pretty. So, why is that? It's because we're putting the cart before the horse. We're making the sound and making this amplify it. Instead of letting resistance create the vibration. Much better sound, right? Right? And the instrument will even correct, even if you're blowing off pitch. I'm blowing an F sharp in my mind and it still corrects the G, but the G sounds funny now. It doesn't sound clear. So when we do vibrate, we have to be accountable for the intonation. So even though the instrument will correct a little bit, I think it's really important when we do buzz that we buzz right in tune. Like put a tuner up. A lot of people will buzz a note, like for instance, okay, I'm buzzing that note a little sharp, right? So now I'm not playing down the middle of the horn, and now I'm going to be fighting the horn. That tells us where we're supposed to put our tuning slide. Do this little vibration, blow into the horn, right in tune. Look at a tuner, then put it in the horn. And if you're flat when it goes in and the mouthpiece was in tune, then you need to move your slide. You're not playing down the center of the instrument. So my buddy John Lewis talks about this a lot. Now he thinks I'm full of crap with all this buzzing stuff, but we come from opposite ends of the spectrum a little bit, but we both understand each other. He wants what I got, and I want what he's got. So I'm going to listen to what he has to say, because he's a really, really, really great trumpet player. And so I'm never going to disregard anything. That's why I still buzz my mouthpiece, even though I say that's not what we do. I go, well, he buzzes this mouthpiece, and I'm going to do that. Some of the greatest trumpet players I know buzz their mouthpieces, so there's something to it. It's just not what's happening when they're playing the horn, and I'll go to my grave with them on that.
Well, it is a very interesting concept. I mean, I have to admit, I've never heard explained that way. But as you did demonstrations, it makes perfect sense.
So to play high note loud, right? We've all been taught, oh, you got to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Well, if we get smaller, it's going to get softer, softer, and softer, right? You get that starts happening. You get 5 notes at once. The air is trying to get through someplace. You're having to force it through these lips smashed together. There has to be a defined space.
Yeah.
So, when somebody comes to me for a lesson or something, and they've got a pinch sound. The first thing I do is I make them play a C in the staff, wide open. I go, no tongue. I want you to go, oh, like an opera singer, and let the attack be messy, and just go. Like kind of wide open like that, right? Now play a G on top of the staff the exact same way. It sounds, that's not a good attack. I'm not saying use that attack anywhere in public. It's a very open sound, and then do the same thing on a high C. And everything's kind of wide open, right?
Mm-hmm.
And big and loud. My lips are in the same position they were for that bottom C. Right? Now, that's my tongue level is too low because I'm going, oh. Now, I don't think we need to go, ee. But I think we need to let the tongue kind of does what it does naturally. So I use an ah syllable in all registers, and I let my tongue do what it needs to do. Because you can go ah, and still sing a higher note with ah, and your tongue will go up, but not as high. So that will help keep the sound opened up. So when you're going in the upper register, you don't want to get softer. Right? You want the sound to be the same. Well, I'm not very warmed up here, but it's not getting softer. It's the same volume as I go up to, above high F. So this has to stay open. So what do we do to make that vibration happen on the higher notes? That's where the air comes in. We have to create more compression to get the lips vibrating that frequency further apart, as opposed to doing the hose thing, that the analogy that I like to make it smaller, that makes the stream smaller as well. So, this is a little yin and yang here. There's a little bit of all that happens, of course. But a lot of us have been taught to the extreme where that's why the high notes aren't coming out loud. And if you go to James Morrison, if you Google James Morrison, and he has a bunch of online lessons, and just go to his range thing. And he's the first person I've ever heard say what I'm saying. And I saw that, and I was like, yes, some validation from somebody that really knows, that really, really knows. Because this guy,
yeah,
he is a scientist, and this guy knows, he doesn't even warm up. He was a guest artist with a big fat band for a week in Japan, and his horn stayed on the bandstand all week. And my wife was a road manager, so when he would come out after we played 3 tunes, I go, was he practicing back there, or buzzing a mouthpiece or anything? She goes, no, he's writing music or eating French fries or whatever. And he would walk out on stage and bring it right now. And I asked him, I go, all right, I want to know the secret. There's got to be a secret. I want to know how you do this. And he goes, I'm warmed up in my mind. I go, all right. And he goes, it's a feel. So you know what it feels like. Because you can flap your lips a little bit and stuff, maybe to get some blood in there and to get you going, but you don't need to play the trumpet. And so
Mm.
I'm going, okay, maybe this guy's not as smart as I thought. So I left my horn on the bandstand that night, and I was back. And I said, okay, I'm not going to warm up. I can do this. I'm going to do it. This is Gordon Goodwin's book. Okay, this is not. This was a bad idea for me. This did not turn out well. The end of the story. So I get on the bandstand and I took my horn out and I did play just a couple of quick notes. And I was like, all right, I'm okay. Well, the first note I got to play is a high D. I have to go bap because we do this on our section. Bap bap bam, and then we go high F sharp shake. Then we go into our first tune, right? I clammed every one of those notes. It's like clam, clam wrong, splat, airball, and I was going, all right, I'm not listening to this guy.
Mm.
So it didn't really work for me, nor can I afford to be embarrassed in public. But he's got this figured out. But talking about range, he talks about exactly what I'm talking about with the reed and the aperture and how we go smaller to go softer and loud to go. And so it's a little seed I planted in a few students. And just by thinking about that, all of a sudden things improved. So don't let anything I'm saying, if there's any young people out there, don't let me screw you up. And I'm not arguing. I'm not saying your teacher's wrong. I'm not, they say, they say that Wayne doesn't know what he's talking about. Fine. That's okay. But maybe just think about what I'm saying and apply it to yourself. Because I have had success with different people. And just with Nathaniel the other day, we conquered just a couple of things with a little bit of voodoo and my special potion that I put, bat wings in and the stuff I cook. It's a special salve. But there is something to it, so.
No, I think what you just said is a great point. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you need to listen to people. You need to um, hear what they're saying and figure out how to adapt potentially your own playing. And you need to take a little bit of everyone, right? Because
Of course. We're trying to get to
everyone's
the same place. We're all
right.
getting to this place, and there's different approaches. There's different ways to hammer a nail in, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this, just to show you how weird I am, this is a tuning crook, as everybody knows, right? And you see
Hmm.
there's tape all over it and stuff, right? You know why that is? Because I drilled holes in every one of those spaces. But there's and so what I did is I cover one up, and I was doing all the stuff I was doing with Nathaniel, going for G's with the hole in the horn there, because these are all different nodal points. And I found that with one of these, I could hold it and it would go. I would hit an F sharp second valve and let go, and it would go to G. It would go da
Mm.
da 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 da, like a natural trumpet. It's got holes
Yeah,
in it.
sure.
So it made me think about that. So this is some of my other voodoo crap. So I had to tell Bob Malone, I go, hey, that tuning crook, that gold plated tuning crook you gave me, the medium large one, I kind of drilled some holes in it and screwed it up. But it's just, I'm experimenting. I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to figure out the acoustics of the instrument
Sure.
further than we know it. Because there's things going on here with me and other people that nobody can seem to figure out. Nobody
Right.
knows the answer to why that break is there. I've heard not one person ever give me a definitive answer that's science based or that works.
Mm.
They go, oh, have you tried this fingering? Well, I've tried everything, obviously. I'm way past trying different fingerings. I do
Right.
this as well. I'll do stuff like this. I'll go to play a note and I'll pull my tuning slide all the way out while I'm glistening up to the note to make the instrument like a half step flat. And that's how I learned to play a high A, because in high
Mm.
school, the A was my bad note. My break was in a different place. And I learned to play an A by going ba, wah, and pushing down one, two, three. And it taught me where the A was.
Mm.
Because at that time, the tune Rocky was a big hit on
Right.
the radio in the 70s. And my marching band's playing Rocky. So I got to play this thing, and it's got a bunch of high A's in it. And I got all those chops, and I can't play a high A, so I sound like a complete buffoon. So I figured out how to do that. So I took my slide, and I took some steel wool, and I made it so it moved real loose. So I could slide it out like that. And I'd go, ba-da, boo-da, wee-ah. sounds like a trombone. But eventually, I learned how to play the high A with the right fingering, or with another fingering anyway, because I play a first valve, which is not the right fingering. But
Well, I think everything that you just mentioned it's really it comes perfectly to everyone is we're all different. Our faces are different, our bodies are different, so any one technique sure can be applied, but I'm sure that you have to adapt it into your own self so that it works for you. You know,
right,
the trumpet
definitely.
is that what do they say? It's the trumpet is that beast that everyone has to figure out how to tame eventually.
Yeah, my friend just wrote a book called Taming the Beast. My friend Matt Franke wrote a series of books.
There you
It
go.
is. It's the coil of torture, is what I call it.
The
This is
cool.
not. I look over this thing every day. I go, look, I clean you regularly. I'm nice to you. I oil you every
Yeah.
day. This is how you treat me. You know, every day it's different. And trumpet players and French horn players are the most inconsistent uh, of all brass players. And does anybody know why that is? Curious. Would anybody know why that would be? Go ahead and unmute and answer if you know. It's not because we suck. Even though a lot of trombone
Well,
players would just say that, that's because we suck. It's because the target is small.
mm,
We have this small little space,
yeah,
right? And it's like walking a tightrope. You can be everything can be perfectly cool, but if the wind blows a little bit, then you're going to fall. You know, or you get
right.
distracted, you're going to fall. Everything has to be down the middle of the bullseye to be effective. On the trombone, I mean, they have their own problems, obviously, their personalities mainly, but that's another thing. The target is bigger and it will correct more. It doesn't mean that the trombone is easy. It's got one moving part. It's obviously not easy. You would think they go, I'm going to play the trombone. That's got a lot easier, one moving part. 10 times as hard, of course. But it is this way. It's more forgiving. The mouthpiece, it's more forgiving than the French horn or the trumpet. The tuba, you have to miss the note by 35 feet. So,
Right.
and they have their own issues, tuba players as well, from the lack of oxygen and stuff. So that's why we spend so much more time warming up and doing fundamentals and
Hmm.
attacking notes without the tongue and trying to find the middle of everything, trying to find the middle of that bullseye every day. And if we spend that time, it doesn't have to take hours, a little bit every day, getting our face to our optimum feel,
Hmm.
right? Whatever that is, even if you feel good, some days you take out the horn and I can tell, I go, I already know I can play, and then there's other days I go, this is not going to be pretty. The first note's not going to be good. But you still go through the same drill every day, no matter what, because that will build consistency.
Sure.
Just going, oh, I feel great today, I won't warm up. The next day, you're like a runner. You're like a runner that didn't stretch and then ran a marathon. And the next day, you can't walk because your legs ache so much. So the next
Hmm.
day, you're out of commission. That's what happens to trumpet players too when they have to get thrown into the fire and didn't warm up and have to play a bunch of high stuff and they're working real hard for it. Then the lips are swollen. Then the next day they can't make a sound,
Right.
you know. And so I also a big advocate for warming down, doing a lot of Bobby Shoes, these lip fluttering things, to get the whole
Hmm.
face, get the lactic acid out of the muscles and get the blood flowing. A lot of this, a lot of pedal tones, even with like one lip in there. I don't play pretty pedal tones. I do like plug it both lips in there separately and let it just flap around because it gets blood in there, and really gets things moving. And then once I've done that for a few minutes, then I might play a couple of notes in the staff and get my aperture set again, get my sound clear. Then I'll put the trumpet in the case. And then the next
Right.
morning when I take it out, it remembers, oh yeah, we did all that maintenance last night. Oh, we're going to be okay today. As opposed to
Right.
the other way where it's going, yeah, remember last night? I'm about to jack you up. That's what it's saying. And it takes longer to warm up on those days. So it's really important that we have something, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be what I say or whatever gets you to that feel. And if
Hmm.
it's mouthpiece buzzing and it's this and that, or it's playing the lead pipe, whatever, do that. Another thing I like to do is I do like to buzz the lead pipe, especially if things aren't responding well, because You can force it, you can always force it to respond, but it's like having a crappy reed. If you blow harder on it, it will respond, but that saxophone player, oboe player, their music's going to suffer because they're working harder to make the reed vibrate. So I'll do things like I'll play without any tongue or anything. I'll just see if I can make the lead pipe resonate. That's buzzing pretty good right now. I got this little pinpoint, and this is actually vibrating, right? The lips aren't buzzing there. I can tell they're not buzzing. So I'll do some air attacks like that, and that really brings that foundation I was talking about, that from a place of a classical pianissimo. It brings that down to that place. So when you're blown out, like everybody, that happens to everybody here, that plays the brass instrument, that's a really good thing to do. And bring everything back together and bring it back to that foundation where it's easy to play loud. We can always overblow and play loud. Anybody can, any monkey can do that. But to play elegant and soft is another story. And if you bypass that part of the lesson, you're going to be that person in concert band, the band director is going to go, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoa, trumpet. What's going on back there? They don't want to hear about your excuses. You got to be able to. I also think about when I practice, you think about pianissimo and fortissimo, right? What you think those are. And this is like in a place, pianissimo is in a place where you can go further. You're not as soft as you can play. And this is not as loud as you can play. Just in case somebody wants a little bit more. I always look at this as like 75% of my effort level. Fortissimo. Not 100%. Because 100% is probably overblowing.
Sure.
Right? But you have to understand this because there's going to be, it's backwards on my screen here, but this is my left hand. Getting over here, when somebody needs you to play softer, you need to have practice softer, even if it seems unreasonable. Like, man, I'm playing pretty darn soft. But I've been on many a scoring session where they've said, Trumpet, can that be a little softer? And I'm going, yeah, I think so. But it's going to be diminishing returns at some point. I go, can you just help me out and maybe turn the mics down a little bit? Or I'll get away from the mic sometime, and play comfortable. I'll do whatever I've got to do because sometimes it does. Playing on a scoring stage is much more difficult than playing live. Scoring stage it's forgiving, but they want things because of the way they're recording. Sometimes things are too loud or too soft because we're getting into the string mics and the woodwind mics, all the lughead brass players are blasting away and it's everywhere in the room. So we have to adjust our playing to that stuff. So it's really important to understand that when you're practicing and being able to do that. So the 75% rule is a good rule just in general.
Right.
So high C at fortissimo. I am not blowing as hard as I can, but that's rattling the stuff on my walls in here, right? Now, if I could blow as hard as I can, and I don't know if that sounds softer to you here, it sounds just as loud next to my bell, but I bet you in the cheap seats, nobody can hear me because my sound is not projecting. When we overblow, the sound goes to the side. That's why I hear a lot of trumpet players and they're really loud next to them. Then you go out in front of the band and you can't hear them. The trombone players hate them because it's loud right there. They're like, oh, God. Saxophone players aren't even noticing it. It's not getting that far. By getting a more refined sound and not just meeting the instrument where fortissimo is, the sound gyrates and sizzles and you get that spin on the sound and it goes forward. And you have to be able to make that same projection at pianissimo, right? So the people in the cheap seats that paid $6 for their seats at the Hollywood Bowl in the very back row, they should be able to hear you at pianissimo the same way they hear you at fortissimo, only softer. The sound presence should be the same, if that makes any sense. And that comes from quality of tone. It comes from being down the middle of the horn. It comes from purity of sound. And that's why when you hear really great woodwind players, like a great flute player, Or a piccolo player. Oh my God, a great piccolo player can bury an orchestra. And it's
Sure.
not because it's louder. It's because they have this pure thing. It's high and it's extremely pure. And it's just going to poke out above everything. Or even playing in the middle register. The sound will rise out of a Broadway pitch. You can hear the flute very well, better than the trumpet sometimes.
Right.
It rises out of the pit. I mean, it's a quality of, and I've watched many of my colleagues here in Los Angeles. I mean, I'm a very lucky man, and I play with the greatest players in the world on a regular basis. Woodwind players, violinists, bassoon players, and I'm just in awe of what I hear. The quality of
Mm-hmm.
tone. And Bill Rockenbach is a great example, who's one of the greatest bass trombone players on the planet. He plays trumpet and all the trombones as well, but he mostly plays bass trombone and tuba. But he doesn't play loud. I mean, you'll hear him, he's strong, but you can be, like he played on my big band records, and he'd be playing and it'd be perfectly balanced. The trombones would be perfectly balanced. Then I'd go in and listen, and I see the engineer diving for the bass trombone fader, having to turn it down because his sound is so focused
Mm.
that it's engulfing everything in the room without being loud. And it's an interesting phenomenon. George Roberts, who you may not all know that name, but he was on all the Frank Sinatra recordings, playing all those great Nelson Riddle bass trombone parts that go boop, 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 boop. Frank Sinatra had a lot of charts that had this big bass trombone thing in them. And George Roberts didn't play loud. But
Mm.
listen how strong he sounds on those things. So it's not a matter of volume, and lead trumpet players get into this lughead thing about it's got to be really loud. Of course, it's got to be powerful, but it doesn't have to be overblown. It just needs to be like an orchestral first trumpet player.
Mm-hmm.
You hear them play, and when you sit next to somebody playing the C trumpet correctly, it's not real loud right next to them, man, but they're zinging through the orchestra, you know, and it sounds
Boy.
going like this as opposed to going like this. And high note trumpet players, a lot of times you start pinching and pressing, the sound starts going like this, and it should be more like an opera singer. The people in
Mm-hmm.
all those seats over there, everybody should be able to hear you,
Mm.
right? So that's mentally, I think about that. And when I'm in a room, if I'm in an auditorium, if there's an exit sign that I see, I try to throw my sound to that exit sign, no matter what I'm playing. And I don't know if I'm successful or not, but yeah, I hear recordings. I sound like I'm getting out front pretty good, So I'm doing something right. And just about efficiency and what I've learned over the years about being more efficient from Bobby Shue and watching and analyzing different trumpet players. I'm 63 and I'm way stronger than I was when I was 30 or even 25.
Mm.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, a 63-year-old Wayne Bergeron can kick a 25-year-old Wayne Bergeron's butt physically and on the trumpet. I'm stronger than I was when I was young. So some of this stuff that I'm sharing with you, that I've learned and stuff, go research some of that because it works, and I'm living proof of it. And even going through this cancer stuff and being beaten down physically, I'm coming back. And every problem I've ever had, I had a lip cyst problem in 2009. I had to stop playing for 6 weeks. When that thing went away, I had to reanalyze the way I played, pressure wise, so that wouldn't come back again. I came back stronger. I had some dental issues many years ago where I had to have this tooth bonded. I learned to play on this chipped tooth, and I had it fixed and bonded, and I couldn't play. It just completely screwed me up. It was a very long, slow, methodical process. I started studying with Boyd Hood, started doing the stamp routine, buzzing my mouthpiece, which I said is bad, right? That put me back together. And I came back, once it started falling into place, I came back stronger. So I intend on coming back stronger from this
Yeah.
as well. I'm not there yet, but I'm doing pretty good. And I've learned something from every one of those experiences, and I try to share those. So some of these things I'm talking about are things that I'm just sharing that I've learned on my own. So
Yeah.
um, I hope age is not catching up with me, and I'm not going to be stronger, but I think I am. Because it's coming. It's coming. It's come a long way in the past several months. And it's kind of coming. I'm learning to do it even easier. I mean, I'd like to be able to play at 70 or 80 like Bobby Shue. If I'm still kicking, man. I like to be able to whip some of these college band trumpet players around the stage, some of these young folks, they come up with all their chops and I've got, it's funny, I've dealt with a bunch of them. I do a lot of guest artist things, and every once in a while I'll go somewhere and there's somebody with a lot of chops back there and they're gunning for me. you know, they're gunning for me, and we're going to play a feature together. I play this tune, Waynard and Maynard, and a little trumpet feature that was written for Maynard Ferguson. And so I do it, and and I never instigate a high note contest. I always, I always let the other trumpet players start, and however they start is how it has to continue. So if they start playing high notes right out of the chute, get excited, we got about 15 choruses to go, and so I do the Muhammad Ali and I do the rope-a-dope, what's it called? And if somebody comes in screaming a bunch of high notes, when I come in, I'll go, oh, yeah, all right, well. They'll end their first course on a high G, and I go. And I just shuck and jive and play some stuff, and they come back in and they go, oh, and they start doing all the main stuff again. I come back in a little bit higher on the plunger, maybe. I do, and they come in, they go, oh, he's going higher, and then by the third or fourth chorus, they're out of chops, and that's when I come off the rope swinging hard. Oh, I'm tired. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. An adolescent, but every once in a while, you got to use some strategic carving, as they call it, a strategic ass whooping. Somebody needs sometimes.
Absolutely.
Teach them not to do that, because it's really kind of stupid. Maynard Ferguson got really pissed off at me and the other trumpet player one time because we used to trade with him and we were setting the pace instead of letting him setting the pace, and he got really mad at us. And I've never forgotten that, to never grandstand. And I always play, if I'm playing with a high school player that doesn't have a lot of ability but is out there and his mom is watching, if he comes off playing a little bit of blues, I'm going to play off of him or her. And I might play a little bit of stuff at the end, just go, hey, I can still play high, I can still do it, but I don't go out there just to carve, to go, just, oh, here's a weak player, or an inexperienced.
Sure.
I'm going to play off. I'm going to make them feel good, and the performance is better, even if we don't play one high note. If we've kind of answered each other a little bit, it's better. I played that tune with Bobby Shue, and we barely went into the upper register because he asked me right before, he goes, this is not going to be a lughead contest, is it? Because if it is, I'm going to bring my other mouthpiece out. I go, no, man, you set the pace. And we just played some bebop. And he made me play better. He made me play better licks, because I had to go to him, kind of, So anyway, yeah. I don't know why I went into that rant. But
no, it's all good. It's it's all good stuff, Wayne. And I have to thank you a ton. I mean, tonight has been it's been great. I mean, we've had all these little tidbits and learning about you and the things that you've had overcome. I think is I think it's inspiration for all of us on the call and for for a lot of other people to just be able to realize that sometimes you have setbacks and you have things that they don't go the way we want them to go, right? But yeah. The fact of the matter is that you come back from them, and you came back from it stronger. And we're all rooting for you, by the way.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I got a clean bill of health in November, but with cancer, every time I sneeze now, I go, oh, cancer's back. I'm completely freaked out, and I'm very aware of everything in my throat. Any little lump or anything, I kind of freak out about.
Yeah.
Now, and so it's been that day. It was a life-changing day. The day they told me I had this, and what the doctor said to me, just doctors don't always have the best bedside manner. He said, oh, well, you're lucky. This is the cancer to get if you're going to get cancer. I go, oh, great. Well, thanks for that. Cancer in my neck. I play the trumpet, you buffoon. Don't tell me that.
Right.
But he said, no, it's very curable. And we know a lot about HPV cancer. There's a vaccination for it now, actually. Kids get vaccinated for HPV.
Yeah.
So we know a lot about it. And so we have a high success rate, and we have a formula for this. But he said there's no worse treatment you can go through because of where it's located. And he said, untreated, it will kill you quickly. So I was going, he's painting a pretty picture, this guy, So I went and gotten in my car, man. I just, I fell apart, of course, and I had to go tell
Of
my
course.
wife, and but we plowed through this, man. My wife and I, we it was horrible. It was quite a party around here. Let me tell you, it was really
I'm
bad.
sure. I'm
And
sure.
but I had my calendar and I crossed off on the wall, and I crossed a day off every day until my final
Hmm.
day, man. And like my wife said, she goes, "You're going to look at this in about a year, and you're going to go, what cancer?" And
Right.
that's kind of how I feel like I got to kick cancer's ass, man. And
Yeah.
I have colleagues dying around me
Yeah.
from cancer right now. A young
Yeah.
saxophone player just passed away, Kevin Guerin.
Mm.
A gal that had been her name Nicole, who was talking me through all my cancer stuff because she went through this a year before me,
Yeah.
and I never met her. I only talked to her by text, and her husband is a trumpet player in Toronto, and a guy named Howard Moore. And I felt like I knew her because she goes, "Oh yeah, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen." She goes, "Is your saliva still good?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, good, you're ahead of the curve," And she was really encouraging.
Mm.
Well, when I told her that I had a clean bill of health, I didn't hear back from her, and it turns out she'd had a reoccurrence. And her husband told me that she had months to live, and she just passed away yesterday or a couple of days ago.
Wow.
And he let me know, and she was dying. She died at home, but this thing engulfed her. She weighed 85 pounds, and she was 6 feet tall,
Wow.
and she was a model. And I'm going to try to start crying here, even though I don't know her. She's was my friend. She like
Yeah.
took
Absolutely.
me through this crap because this crap sucks. It really
Yeah.
sucks. And so people around me are fallen, and I count my lucky stars, man, every day, and that I'm here, man, and I beat this thing. So it's changed me as a person for sure. I'm not quite as
I'm
big of
sure.
an asshole as I used to be. I still have a little asshole potential,
Don't we all?
but
Don't we all?
I try to give people the benefit of the doubt now a little bit, even if they're completely stupid. No, but
Yeah.
I am a little more compassionate about things now, and I feel very lucky, and I'm going to take care of my body
Yeah.
from now on, and I'm going to respect you know everything. So that's what it's done to me. So it has done some good stuff to
Yeah.
me. So anyway, not to
Well,
depress
well,
everybody.
Wayne. No, no, no. It's. I mean, I think obviously I'm speaking for everyone here, but I'm the host, so I can do that. How about that one?
You're the boss, sir.
But you definitely have many supporters, and like I said, we are all rooting for you because we just want to hear, we want to hear that next thing. It's always
Well,
it's,
thank you.
it's some, there's always something. I mean, I've listened to your records, and I've listened to, you know, I can always tell them I got a movie on. I'm like, and I hear some trumpet going on. I'm just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Wayne. And then you look it up, and you're like, yep, there he is. And it's like, it you've done so much for the musical community that at some point we have to definitely say thank you to you.
Oh man, well, okay, I'm
You know,
very lucky. I mean, I can do the job, but I'm
yeah,
really fortunate to get to do what I do, and I love doing it, and I'm very proud of my body of work,
yeah, you
as
should be.
my first trumpet teacher is as well,
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
as my mom was as well. And so I never take for granted that I deserve any of the great things I've gotten to do. I figure I was in the right place at the right time, and preparedness meeting opportunity. That thing we've all heard that phrase. When that happens, you better be ready. When I got that opportunity, I think I was ready, or I thought I was. I did a good enough job where I got called back again anyway. So
Yeah.
that's kind of. So anyway, it's been great. If you want, I know I've been babbling for a long time here, and I've got a little bit of time. If somebody wants to ask a couple of questions, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, we actually have one in the chat here, and that is would like to hear your thoughts on what and how you would be teaching middle school and high school trumpet students. So I think, probably just some pedagogical, tidbits there. This is from Larry.
I would probably be the worst person to teach a young beginning player, but I would share some of the stuff about how we make sound with them because they're all going, and they're 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 doing all this stuff they've been taught and they don't have a quality of sound yet. Quality of sound can come very easy by just letting the air pass through the reeds and make the sound. And if there's some way to explain that to a young person, it's hard to explain to them about the sympathetic vibration and the standing wave because they're not going to know what you're talking about. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So how do I expect them to? But getting them just to blow air through the lips instead of trying to make a noise. You know,
Yeah.
and I guarantee you that sound will be better than going. You know, this is where keeping the corners firm so all that air stays inside the mouthpiece and we're not leaking. Another thing, a weak embouchure will leak, and then that creates, and you get, you lose compression, just like a
Yeah.
car that had bad piston rings. Oil would leak through and it wouldn't run very well. You have to keep the compression in the mouthpiece. Um, yeah, and I would, take a good look at their facial structure and the size of their face when determining what equipment they should be playing. A 7C comes with every trumpet because it's kind of in the middle size wise,
Right.
but it's kind of big for most young faces. And I think that a lot of young trumpet players, and Bobby Shue, I got this from him, so I'm not going to pretend like this is my information, um, get embouchure problems from an early age because they're playing on something that's too big for their face. Let's face it, a 3C or a 7C for somebody with a real small face and really thin lips is like this.
Right.
And they're going, man, I don't seem to have any range, and I'm really having trouble seeing the music. This might be too big. So I think going down to in box sizes anyway, a 10.5 or a 12 for a little face, and maybe not a C cup, something a little shallower to help them create that compression a little easier. That resistance comes a little bit easier with a shallow mouthpiece, right? And there's a school of thought on this that we have to play a big mouthpiece, and I even think that many orchestral players that sound as great as they do on their Bach 1B are probably working way too hard. They can probably do the same thing on a 1.5C,
Exactly.
and could probably create that same sound and not work as hard, or even a 3C or something. They might disagree with me, but I think most players are going, well, I want to make this big sound, so they go too big, or they want to play a lead mouthpiece, so they go way too small. And that's all going to be based on how big your lips are and how big your face is. If you have really fleshy lips that protrude, when you put them up to your face, the lips go inside the mouthpiece, making that mouthpiece shallower than it is for one person to the next. Dan Finero, my colleague, is a living proof of that because he plays a much deeper mouthpiece than I do. He plays like a 3 rim and not quite a C cup, but pretty big for somebody that creates the kind of lead sound he does. But when you watch him play, his lips disappear into the mouthpiece. So he's taking up that cup space with flesh. So the mouthpiece is shallower, getting closer to the bottom. So I could never play, a real shallow mouthpiece because I bottom out. My mouthpiece is not huge, but for somebody that does what I do, I have a pretty good cup size. This is my studio model. This is my shallowest piece and what I play all my lead stuff on. But I can make a quality sound on this that's got some resonance and got some low end in it in the middle register. And I think that's why maybe in the upper register too. And I'm not working that hard for it because my lips are going in there. So I'm getting the benefit of this mouthpiece still.
Right.
If I try to go to something shallower, my sound starts getting brittle. I start hitting bottom when I swell up, and then things get ugly. Then I get that leaf blower sound I was talking about.
Yeah.
Is there another question or two?
Yeah, I think we got time for one more here. Wait, Jacob, I think you have your hand up. Go ahead and unmute, buddy, and just ask away.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne, for being here. And I have been a huge fan ever since I heard you on The Incredibles when I was a kid. And my question is, in the process of exploring my range, I found that the higher I go, if we're talking above high C, there starts to get this little fuzziness that comes in, and eventually it's pretty much 80% fuzz. I can hit like a high G pitch. I can hear just a little sliver of that high G in there, but I can't get rid of the fuzz. I don't know if this is a problem that you run in before with yourself or another student. I wondered if you had any advice.
Is the G just as loud as the C?
Well, it's a lot of fuzz, so it's hard to tell.
A lot of white
So
noise.
like if we're talking about the fuzz range, it's sort of like the C, it's like, a standard note, but then it turns to like 80% fuzz,
Is it like this? Is
20%.
it like this kind of sound? Like
Yes, and then just a ton more of that.
yeah. I'll try to do it like you. Let's see. Because a lot of that comes from uh, the space being like too wide. Like I'm making a really big, giant, wide aperture
Hmm.
instead of bigger in a pinpointed place. And so a lot of air is moving through there, trying to make those reeds vibrate. Like I'm using a bassoon reed on an English horn, so it's not going to make as clear of a sound. And so maybe just some of the stuff we've been thinking about. Try thinking about like playing those notes soft. Like playing a high C soft with the clearest sound you can make, and go up with that same thing. Just go up to an F or a G, and see if it's fuzzier or if it's clear at a softer volume. Because it could be you're opening everything up too much, and then not being able to move enough air with the aperture so big to create a clear sound. And Jack Sheldon, Jack Sheldon was this great trumpet player that he had a very diffuse, he played like this, real fuzzy sound. And I asked him, man, Jack, how do you make that all that fuzz in your sound? He goes, too big of a mouthpiece and not enough chops. so it's got something to do with the mechanism we're talking about for sure. Because I do that. I make that sound by opening up my aperture too big and not moving quite enough air. And then if I want to sound smoky and diffused, I'm playing really soft and I put that on a mic, but that's not moving enough air for the size aperture, so it creates fuzz.
Hmm.
If I play louder with the same set, my sound clears up as opposed to right. So it does have something to do with the aperture. I would say 95% of trumpet problems stem from the reed, and we don't ever address it. We all we're thinking about air, and we're thinking about pressure, and we're thinking about I got the wrong mouthpiece, and it really comes from we just got a crappy reed. We can't cut it off and whittle it down like saxophone players do. We got to fix it. We have to understand it. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, speaking of the Incredibles, can want me to just share? I'll share a little moment. Michael Giacchino did this thing with his iPhone where he was filming us in the studio, and I'll just give you a quick. I'll share my screen and do this little thing right there. You might enjoy this. It's kind of fun. Okay, there's my cat. And let's see, I got all this music here. Let's see, Incredibles. I got all the trumpet parts, the Incredibles. Okay, so here's the end credits. Boom. Put that over here. And I'll wind up to where this thing starts. Over here somewhere. A lot of shakes. Michael Giacchino is not afraid to write a shake. Okay, so, and then, bear with me just a second here. I think this is the one. Let's see here. Oh, here's another one. Actually, we'll check this one out. We're at in the chart here. There we are. So anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
That was really fun. Yeah, kind of a fun thing. Here's one more little. There's a real short one here. I'll share with you because it shows the brass section actually. Uh, let's see if this is it. No, the same one. Sorry. Uh, is it right? Maybe it's this one here. This is the end of the track. That's Gordon Goodwin conducting. And Michael Giacchino shooting this with his iPhone. Gordon doesn't know he's there. Ah. So anyway, it's kind of fun. That's what I do. That's my job. That's what I get to go to work and do that.
Yeah, lucky you.
How cool is that? It's pretty
That's
amazing,
awesome.
man. That's a 110 piece orchestra,
Yeah.
all crammed in, all playing together. You
Mm.
notice that one like that went. They went.
Mm-hmm.
They changed it to triplets.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we
Wow.
sucked. Well, maybe we did suck. That's why they changed it.
Yeah, okay.
There's always that. And let me.
Well, Wayne, I can't thank you enough again for tonight's class sitting and talking with us. It's been fantastic. We definitely need to thank Yamaha for helping us out with this event. They've made this possible in conjunction with West Music again. My name is Alex Beamer, and what we're going to do is we did record this, and everybody who signed up tonight will get the video out to you so that you can review it, watch it, all those types of things. If you have any questions, my email is all over that stuff, so you can send me an email. But that's it, and I guess everyone has a great evening. And Wayne, thanks again, my man.
Thank you very much, Alex, for everything, for your hospitality, and great to see everybody.